Peace, peace, peace. What it is, fam? It's your brother Taiwan Sueno, aka the Orthodox Moor. My fault for that. We had to stop the last live stream. I made a boo boo on my end. I accidentally stopped the broadcast instead of stop sharing my screen. I was trying to show my other brother's screen real quick. So we're just gonna start this over again real quick, being that we were only like 8-10 minutes in anyway. And my brother's got his references ready, and we got the screen share popping up. So once again, I'm here with my brother Ulrich from Ireland. You know what I'm saying? And we are dealing with this topic of Atlantis and the concept of Atlantis potentially being in Mauretania and its effects on how modern chematology is going to either absorb that information, reject that information, or how it affects how anyone understands that information. And so, again, real quick, me and the brother were having a conversation with some other brothers from the UK. Beautiful, Bill, beautiful conversation. I love building with these brothers. You know what I'm saying? And some good back and forth was happening. And I just so happened to take truth from both sides of the argument and thought that it would be good for the family to have a good little discussion on this one, and just hear what's being said on it. Because yeah, it's an interesting topic because a lot of people are going to feel kind of weird about the fact that Atlantis is possibly in North Africa, right? That's going to make people feel all kind of ways about stuff. So with that. I'll let brother Ulrich, aka Raj, just get in and break down his concepts on the matter one more time, and then I'll let him present his information and all that kind of stuff, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, so the last time we were talking about how the similarities between the description, the identical comparisons between what Plato described as to be what as Atlantis. So let's if you can see my screen, um yeah, um so Plato, so this is what Plato states. Plato states that the city of Atlantis was 127 city and diameter. One city is approximately 600 feet, 607 feet. This is the conversion used in the video, which works out to be 127 cidia, equaling 77,089 feet, and 23.24 kilometers. If you measure the Richter structure, it gives the exact same diameters. That is that is actually remarkably accurate compared to what we thought previously of other sites that were excavated. Um, and this is if you can see my screen, this is also an image of the Ricard structure, and as you can see, there are rings around here, and if you read further, you'll note that this is what Plato also described. So Plato got the diameter of the Ricard structure right, and this matches from this point to this point matches the exact diameters described by Plato. So let's read further. Plato describes the city as being bordered to the north by the mountains, notable for their great number of beauty. In fact, the Ricard structure is indeed ringed by mountains to the north. Yeah. So further arguments may include the timeline of the fall of Atlantis, matching up pretty nicely with the proposed date of the younger Dryas impact hypothesis. If you guys don't know what the youngest Dryas is, the youngest Dryas is a cataclysm that hit the Earth that flooded the most parts of the Earth at that time. A lot of mythos and tales of this event could be recorded in other texts such as the Bible, the Ganesh, and other ancient texts, and like the Mayans also. So if we go to the part where the Egyptians was or was Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. So if you guys can look at my screen, um, uh, you know, the Egyptians were The Egyptians were the only people of antiquity who were well informed as to the history of Atlantis. The Egyptians were never a maritime people, and the Atlanteans must have brought the knowledge to them. They were not likely they were not likely sent ships to Atlantis. Now, if you keep on reading further, and by the way, I don't know if Brother Moore will link these links in the chat below, but I'll put it in the back chat so he can link them so that you can have it as your study if that's okay. Brother
Yes,
Moore,
sir.
I
Always,
finished reading it.
always love linking the information. So any links that you can drop me. I will insert after the video.
100. So let's scroll. This is just super there's so much information here, but just let's just focus on the Egypt part, right? So it says here that the explanation is simple that the waters of Atlantis now flow over the country where magnificent and powerful were developed by slow stage from the rude beginning of barbarisms, yeah. And how mighty must have been the patron nation of which this Egypt was a colony. This is what Plato wrote in his in Plato's Tamios. I think that's how it's pronounced. The excerpt from Tamios. So it will be linked at the bottom so you guys can see the evidence and
You talking about the tomatoes?
videos. Yeah, the tomatoes. Yeah,
Okay.
and other links and videos to educate you guys on the subject because I'm just getting to scratching I'm scratching the surface. Um. So sorry. Yeah, so it basically talks here about how the Egyptians were under the Atlanteans, and during the Younger Dryas, during the great disaster that befell the city of Atlantis all in a single night, it destroyed and gave independence to Egypt. It's all here. It's all here. Yeah, yeah, I'll link them. I'll give them the links to Brother Moore right now, and then he'll link it at the bottom. We can just discuss further. I don't have great knowledge on the subject, so I can't really go into deep detail. But what I've read, it seems to concur, and a lot of scientists are and anthropologists are now trying to get an expedition ready for 2019. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is how does this rewrite the history of ancient Egypt as the beginning of human civilization?
So one thing
Yeah,
I want to clear up is the fact that Egypt itself does not claim to be the beginning of civilization.
yeah,
And
100.
so I think a lot of what Brother Roz is talking about is that there's a lot of people on uh, let's say like on two sides that there's a lot of people from like a so-called European perspective to where they try to insert themselves into an Egyptian time frame that they may or may not be in, to try to put themselves at the origin of, like, let's say, Western civilization. And at the same point in time, there's some modern people in the so-called Kemetic um, belief system that's kind of like, and this isn't everybody, this is some people, right, that have this concept of like a Kemetic supremacy, to where like Kemet is the origin of everything, even though Kemet does not make the claims itself. But yeah, like, so this is kind of some information that's gonna force people to, in some way, shape, or form, kind of either reassess their information or just duck their head away from from what this information is talking about. Because if Egypt is a colony thereof, and the people trying to say that either the origin of Western civilization or the origin of civilization themselves being Kemetic, um, that, that's a
And the
challenge.
interesting 100, and the interesting factor of this is also that a lot of similarities in the story of the Mayans and the Mesoamerican civilization talk about a fair seafaring nation bringing them wisdom and from the lands of the east. So, we have similarities in the construction methods of the pyramids of Mesoamerica, and we see the similarities in the construction methods with the Egyptian pyramids. Now, the relation between the two is this. Now, the Egyptians weren't a first Syrian nation. They didn't have a big, a big fleet of ships to go from America to here. But what they did have was they were under a colony such as Atlantis. And if you look into that, also that aspect of history, you'll also find a lot of similarities between where the Mesoamerican civilization took their knowledge from and to from whom they took the knowledge from.
So how much of the Timaeus and Critics have you actually read yourself?
All of it, all of it.
Okay. So I'm sure you've seen some presentations on Mauretania and the Richat and all that type of stuff, right?
Definitely,
So
definitely.
so is there any kind of particulars you want to bring into it besides just the concentric rings, or you want to bring in the whole eye of the Sahara concept, or
No, it's just the rings. It's the rings, the diameters, because the diameters are very precise because Solon, Plato's ancestor Solon, which was six generations before
Mhm.
Plato, he was very meticulous and he was very studious, and he documented things very well. And there was no place in the world which fits the people. And also there was another thing about that I remember. It talks about the stones and the buildings of Atlantis being made of black and brown stones and rocks. And the craziest thing is that surrounding the Richat structure, you will find black and red stones. And on top of that, it talks about Atlantis being a place where elephants roamed, and being a place where people, fishermen, fished. And if you go to Mauritania right now, and you go to the Ricard structure, you will find you will find paintings of elephants, and you'll find fisher boats were used by fishermen. A description that the fishermen's that the Plato used to describe the types of boats that the fishermen use is the exact same ones that they use today right now in Mauritania and Mali and that area of the world. And these things. I'm not saying that this is a definite, but this is the only logical, um, you know, logical point to where we can say for sure that the diameters, the everything surrounding the Ricard structure points to that being Atlantis. Like for example, the Atlas Mountains to the north of the Ricard structure, and
there you go.
Solon and Plato describing it as it facing the north, and a lot more things that if we have time we can go into.
Yeah, we got time. Ain't no rush.
Yeah. There's pots found in the location, and the interesting thing as well is that it says also that around the area is there's seawater, right? But inside the Ricard structure, there's fresh water, just like the description. So if you go to
And
the Ricard structure right now and you dig around the Ricard structure, you'll only find salt water. This suggests that area was underneath, was full of water. Yeah, but inside the Ricard structure, exactly because Plato describes it, and other texts, Egyptian texts, describes where they drew water from inside, fresh water from inside a well in the middle of the city. And lucky enough, scientists have found a fresh spring of water right in the bang in the middle of the Ricard structure.
and so you said something real interesting. I think we should start touching on real quick. You started talking about the Atlas Mountains. So I want people to see where these are at real quick,
Yeah.
just to get a kind of understanding.
Yeah, the Atlas mountain is named after, I think it was a king. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it, but
Right.
it was after.
No, no, we're gonna get into it real quick.
Okay.
No,
Yes.
no. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that it was named after a king, and the interesting thing is also is that Atlantis was said to be um uh the land of Poseidon and worship the god Poseidon, and there's evidence that the people in that area worshipped a seafaring god. And also on top of that, the twin story of Poseidon having twins. In fact, that area has the highest population of twin birth in the entire world. So there's a lot of there's a lot of some would say coincidences with the whole Richat structure, linking it back to Atlantis.
Damn. So then, let's get into this real quick. King Atlas. No, we're not talking about the Transformers. Damn. King of Mauretania. Atlas was also a legendary king of Mauretania, the land of the Mauri. I'm about to click that one in a second. In an antiquity roughly corresponding with the modern Maghreb. I'm also going to do something on this one, people. Okay. In the 16th century, Gerardus Mercator put together the first collection of maps to be called an atlas and devoted his book to the king of Mauretania. Atlas became associated with Northwest Africa over time. He had become connected with Hesperides, nymphs which guarded the golden apples, and Gorgons, both of which lived beyond ocean in the extreme west of the world's since Hesiod's theogony. Diodorus and Pelopidas mentioned that the Gorgons lived in the Gorgides Islands in Ethiopia, Sea, etc. Blah 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 blah, all kind of stuff. Right? Hold on.
Yeah.
The Northwest African region emerged as the canonical home of the king via separate sources. Again, separate sources. So multiple people verifying this, right? In particular, according to Ovid, after Perseus turns Atlas into a mountain range, he flies over Ethiopia. The blood of Medusa, and I really need to get over that one too. Like real talk, like when we're talking this ancient stuff, family. These ancient names for landmasses, fam. Like, oh, fam, like people don't understand that there's two Mauretanias, right? There's an ancient Mauretania and modern Mauretania. I'll have to get in that one too, fam. The bottom line is this: is that Atlas and the Atlas concept of Mauretania Northwest Africa, even back in the ancient times, right? Even the Greeks understood it to be such, right? And so this whole concept of Atlantis, right? Bottom line is you see what it is, fam. Let me get into this bit right here. Let me see if I can remember the name of these people. I think it's Maghrebians. Let me break down Maghreb real quick. Look at me messing it all up. Hold on, I'm going off the top of the head. I'm trying to remember it. I'm trying to remember a Greek term real quick. Is it Macrobians? Yeah, boy. Was a legendary people and kingdom positioned in the Horn of Africa, mentioned by Herodotus. Hold on, let me break this down. Let me see if this is because there's a map that even breaks down the fact that the Macrobians go in. Yes, so yes, they start off in the Horn, but they eventually cover all the way over here, right? So the Macrobians end up becoming the source people for the Maghreb. I just want people to understand that concept. That's a whole different thing there. But bottom line is in an ancient sense that there's a whole ancient people over here, right? And you can see on the map where it says Atlas right there, right? There's a whole ancient people over here in that basically my brother's talking about come back and kind of populate this area in a different way. They kind of structure this area in a different way. And you can see here where the Nile is running a whole different way, right? And so at one point in time, the Nile gets dredged a potentially different direction. You see what I'm saying? Like the Nile, you see the Nile comes, it's like it historically comes down this way. It don't come out over into Libya. It don't come out over into West Africa, North Africa like that, right? It's saying here that it cuts through the Sahara Desert and goes from west to east, right? Technically, it's saying it goes from east to west if you want to get real technical, because like it's you feel what I'm saying? Like that's some stuff right there. That's some like there's a lot of big implications with just this, that, and the third. Like we're talking like just crazy time periods, period. Like way farther back than what people are thinking about, right? Way farther back than what people are thinking about. Because we're talking about like my brother mentioned a time period about cataclysms and whatnot, right? We're talking about even way prior to that, fam. Which cataclysm are we talking about? Yeah, because we're talking about a time period where the Nile was going across North Africa. Think about that. Think about that. And we're talking about being sourced in Northwest Africa. Think about that. Because that's not the storyline now, right? That's not what it is, fam. Like, and so this is where it gets into the Moorish bit, right? So I know the brother is probably not too familiar with this, so I'm gonna just bring this up real quick and break this down just a little bit. So in the chapter, let's see, 47, Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa, right? I'm going to read through some boring stuff. Well, let me see. Yeah, I want to read through some boring stuff real quick because my brother hasn't read it before, right? So I'm just going to read it out real quick. So again, we're talking about Egypt being the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. And it also breaks down like an ancient name for Africa. And I'll get into that later if people want me to. We'll see what it is. But anyway, bro, I'm going to read this out. So if there's anything that seems interesting or pops out to you, please stop me, and we'll go over it real quick, yeah. But there will be a mention of Atlantis in this, yeah. So one, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first and true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and son, the dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In the latter years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with the Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan, seeking new homes. Their dominions and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico, and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake, which caused the great.
Whoa!
The River Nile was.
That is.
Yeah, the River Nile.
That's deep, man.
Oof. Yeah. Go ahead.
That is super deep. So this is what I mean, yeah. So we have a more of a view of the world, a warped view of the world right now, as in we only see it through Eurocentric lenses, and we don't expand our imagination and our sort of connect the dots from different places to come together. It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read that one more time. So they're talking about the ancient Moroccan Empire, right? Talking about now. So for people who don't know, we talk about the ancient Moroccan Empire being about 10,000 years ago in the first questionnaire, or excuse me, in the second questionnaire, and the first questionnaire says it's 50,000 years old, right? So understand when you check out them periods of time when it comes to. So my brother started to give you a period of time, and so you'll see one date there, and you'll see it go back to another date. So just go check them out real quick, yeah. So anyway, I'll read it again. It says their dominion and inhabitation extended from North Africa across the Great Atlantis to North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. Before the Great Earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. Before the Great Earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. So that Richat structure, right? One of the major concepts about that Richat structure and the fresh water and the seawater and all that type of stuff is the fact that that's a result of multiple seismic events, right? And also going back to this whole the Nile River going from North Africa, right? Peep this real quick. So again, we're talking about Atlantis, right? In the Moorish literature, right? Next verse, right? Next divine instruction. The river made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extends eastward from the River Nile westward across the Great Atlantic, and some say a Great Atlantis in how they translate that one. It was used for trade and transportation. Right? So they're talking about a river system going from going east west and going all the way across the Atlantic Ocean and being used for trade, right? And here's the cold part about it, right? Is they're talking about a river that extends across the ocean, right? So you already understand there's actually a current that will bring you from West Africa to America, like its own river, yeah. And when you actually figure out where these rivers are dumping out, you see what it is, fam. And this is why historically you'll see the Manding language in the American Southwest because you see that's where it brings people out, right? They come across into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, etc. Right? And so we see structures in New Mexico that are just like the structures in West Africa, right? But yeah. Moving on. What else did I want to bring up from this? But yeah, so Brother Roz, this is talking about a civilization that existed in North America, South America, Central America, yes. The Atlantis Islands, Atlantis, and North Africa, West Africa, Northeast Africa, right?
100%, and this is what I was saying earlier on about the Mesoamerican. Before I even knew about what you were saying, that there was a lot of similarities or correlations between how the Latvians got to the New World and how them being the masters of Egypt at the time, brought the wisdom and knowledge from Atlantis to the America. And an interesting fact as well is that there is our Egyptian mummies and also Northwest African mummies that have been mummified that show strains of cocaine in their system, in their stomach, and the only region of the world that would have any way of growing this plant is in America, the Colombia region, the Colombian civilization that was there before the Spanish arrived. So that would suggest that there was a very close link between the Atlanteans, the Egyptians, and the New World, way thousands of years before Christopher Columbus came and quote unquote discovered America.
So what you know about my man Klaus Dunner?
Klaus Dunner, I haven't heard of him. Who is he?
Klaus Dunne is an Austrian dude who gets into ancient artifacts and whatnot, and particularly stuff in the Americas and whatnot. You really need to go check him out. Okay, you would dig Klaus Dunne, fan. We'll build on Klaus Dunne after we get off this joint, yeah. But like, so one of the things he does, he goes to America, or he goes to the ancient Americas and whatnot, and he checks out their artifacts and whatnot. And so one thing that he found was all these stones. Like he's all about like the pre-Diluvian like one world culture kind of stuff. Like he's all about finding like tracking down like the languages, the one world language of the time, artifacts that go back to certain things and whatnot. And so one thing he found was that there were stones that had ley lines in them and had natural. Here's a good example that actually had natural maps in them with crystals going through the stone, making natural maps. And so here was a map that was found of North America and South America, and Greenland, etc. But there was also this island over here off the coast of North America and South America, right? So again, we're talking about like the literature, the Moorish stuff. Americans talking about the Atlantis islands and whatnot. We also know there's islands going over here. We already know what the Caribbean's about. You know what I'm saying?
And King Atlantis, the son of Poseidon.
Right. Exactly.
And Poseidon was the god of the Atlanteans. It was the main god of the Atlanteans.
Right. So peep this right quick. Look at this picture right here of you have Africa here, you have Europe here, right? You have the Atlantis Islands here, and then you have America. Is that what I'm saying? Not that this is all just Atlantis. Like, so again, like the brother's saying that Atlantis is over here, and our literature would say like so. So our literature said across the Great Atlantis and including the Atlantis Islands and then going to the Americas, right?
100.
So that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
And then they're also talking about at the time period before the Atlantic Ocean was created, right?
Yep.
There's so much to that, and again, that time period of 10 to 50,000 years, you'll see that there's a bunch of cataclysmic events happening in those time periods, right? I'm not saying the Atlantic Ocean is only 50,000 years old. Don't get that twisted. Right? Yeah. I'm saying that in between those two time periods, there's a lot of cataclysmic events that people got to pay attention to. Real quick, I'm gonna go check out the chat. Go ahead.
We also have to be honest with ourselves. We also have to be honest with ourselves and say that we do not know anything about human history, and we should be open to learning more. Because what we have in academia right now, it's a bunch of researchers and a bunch of people who have an agenda and who have an idea of themselves, and they say this is the idea and this is what human history is, and nothing can change. And right now that we're finding, whether it's Göbekli Tepe, whether it's this new Atlantis discovery, whether it's anything, they have always tried to hide the truth of who we are as human beings and what we are as people. So I feel like right now with this new discovery and with these new research coming upon, I think it's opening people's minds to not be so stuck on this paradigm, which doesn't allow them to see the world in a different way that they see it today. And this has to change in order for us to get the full picture of what our ancestors have accomplished and what our ancestors have set in motion for us to learn from. Like the practices, just imagine certain practices that if we dig in the Richat structure and we excavate, certain practices, certain philosophies that would enrich our being and make us more spiritual and more aware of our surroundings and connect more to the Creator and connect more to ourselves and each other. Just imagine the deep wisdom, the deep knowledge that could be gotten if the gatekeepers of history and the gatekeepers of knowledge, the universities, the colleges, if they just allowed the information to flow to the masses. What a beautiful,
the truth of what you're saying though is that we're the See, here's the truth, though, is the fact that what you're really bringing up is like, so the answer to your question is like, so how does this affect Kemetology? How does it affect all this stuff? How does it affect these people who think that either they're trying to find their Western origin in the Kemet or they're trying to find their world origin in Kemet, right? How does this affect all that, right? Like, so what you're saying is, in truth, West Africa, right? North Africa, the ancient civilization there, that is the gatekeepers. They are the gatekeepers of history.
The 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
And this is what I was. This is what I was.
So what people need to understand is the fact, like, you might have lost the Library of Alexandria, you might have lost libraries everywhere. The Mongols might have burned stuff, etc. Who cares, right? There's this library of Timbuktu, right? In West
10 million
Africa,
books.
Right. And so it not just like, so yes, everything is written in Arabic, right? But they're not the same language written in Arabic. There are multiple languages written in Arabic, right?
And
we're talking about the oral traditions of ancient peoples were finally recorded,
100.
codified, and stored in a library format, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and by who? By the people of the area, by the Moors of the area. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say all of the oral history, because I do believe deep down in the Congos, in the Cameroons, in the Central African Republic, in the Benin, all of these places still have oral tradition that has not been documented. And people have come into Africa for many years and have taken their stories.
See, and this is what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying though. Here's what I'm saying though. Is there's a chance that they are documented in the Arabic, because at that
100.
time, like, I understand the time period where, like, because we understand the peaceful time period, right? Where there was the peaceful coalition. Because again, we can talk about, like, when you look at, like, the Mansa Musa and his brother going making the ships coming to America, you always even in that story you see the fine line being walked between Islam and the ancient religions, right? You always see both present. You don't see one ever shut out. You know what I'm saying? You don't see my man saying
100%.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a time period to where, like, because he's saying, let me get all the scholars of the area, let me get all the finest people of the area doing whatever, right? And so the lingua franca that they can all communicate in within the empire is Arabic, right? That's what you're writing in, right? You don't necessarily got to.
I know it's actually the Arabic script, because many people think exactly. Many people think that the Moors and the people of Senegal, Mali, Mauretania, Northwest Africa, all these places, people think that they only spoke Arabic and Arabic was their dialect. No, it was not, because if you know the story about the gentleman, the prince or the king that was taken as slaves, he returned to Liberia, which spoke a different language to the Moorish Empire. So what we see is that many people from different all over the place came and amalgamated themselves into this Moorish identity and said to themselves that we are the same people with different languages. So therefore, different scripts and different lingos and different ways of talking and speaking will be recorded in a standardized script called the Arabic script.
Right, a lingua franca, a universal language for an empire. That's all there really was.
Yeah, brought to us by the honorable Bilal. So Allah
exactly, right, exactly, 100%.
He basically said to us. He basically said to us, this is a unifier. This Quran is a unifier, and this could unify us towards a certain God, like the Arabs.
Hence, we're still sitting on, again, this is what I'm saying, fam. We got like, how many scrolls, homie? How many million scrolls?
10 million, bro. 10 million. 10
okay.
Million.
So
more, again, it's actually more, actually.
Right. And the more they dive into, exactly. The more they dive into, the more they find, the more languages they're finding. They're like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Exactly.
This culture was recorded. This culture was recorded. Like, there was a point in time to where, there was a point in time to when the lingua franca hit, somebody obviously said, go to everybody you can and get their stories. Somebody obviously said that.
Yeah. And let's not also forget that the French sent those jihadis, those evil people, to destroy those books. Let's not forget that as well, man. It was leaked. Let's not pretend that these people don't have an agenda to forget this part of critical history. Because we've known for hundreds of years about the 32 miles of library under the Vatican. We've known about this. So this is a time where it's very vital for the Moorish community and the African community to come together and say to ourselves, we have something here. Let's build upon it. Let's look back at our past days of glory and build off of that. You know,
Hmm.
I'm just very excited to see what these texts reveals. You
Yeah,
know,
you and me both, fam. You and me both. I think it's good. I think the world will be shocked. But at the same point in time, I don't want to leave this. This is not something that we as people of the continent need to leave in other people's hands. Like we need to be getting on this, getting on our Arabic scripting, on learning the Kufic Arabic, all that type of stuff, and actually being the ones um, interpreting this stuff for ourselves and telling the world about our history there, not letting them tell us about our history there. You feel me?
100%, 100%. I 100% agree with you.
But yeah, so real quick, I just want to reiterate that the chapter I read from was Egypt, the capital um, empire of the Dominion of Africa, right? Like, so I'm not saying Egypt's not important, even in the Moorish paradigm, with the whole Atlantis concept, all that type of stuff. Egypt was decided to be the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa for a purpose, right?
Mm,
It's a
mm.
fantastic repository, fam. Like it's nothing to sneeze at. So we're not saying that. We're just saying at the end of the day, just recognize that Egypt didn't even say it was the origin of the game. So we shouldn't
Yeah.
infer that on them either.
And if anyone is out there listening to this, I urge you to please take the initiative to go and to West Africa and try and document the oral history because it's very important. Because something I've realized is that my generation is not that are living in Africa right now, Western Africa and Northwest Africa. They are not very motivated to go into the schools of oral tradition. So to
Hmm.
go into the
Hmm.
schools where they're taught the oral tradition. So
Hmm.
this generation is probably going to be the last generation where we could actually get the full oral history. So please, if anyone has the funds and is listening to this and has the fun and has the passion to go to Africa and document these oral history, whether it as bizarre as they may sound, to please document them so that in the future our children will be able to read about their former selves and understand the world in a different way that they understand it today. Because we really do need it. We really do need it.
Real talk. And so I don't know if we got too much more to say on this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
However, I will say this, fam. Stay tuned for my brother. I'm back on the show because he's like an Islamic Ifa Israelite. You know what I'm saying? So we got many things to build on, me and him, right?
Definitely,
Uh,
definitely, definitely.
and if you want to give a small
Inshallah.
breakdown on that now, that's cool.
Yeah, man. Like I'm a very weird individual when it comes to spirituality. I have like when feel like I'm close to something, and then I get closer to it, and it just escapes me, and I search for a different way to understand what has just escaped me. You know, Ifa. Yeah, I'm very passionate, and I believe that as African people, to understand the traditions that came before is very important to build on the future and to build on our traditions and the ways of life that we're building for the future. Because this is important to have a foundation. When you see the Europeans have gone back to their former selves and the former glories to understand who they were as a people. This is their strength. They've taken our Arab brothers to the east and they've taken their translated scripts of Plato, Solon, and Socrates, and all these books, and built on their past glory. So, as African people, let's build on our past glory of understanding who we were, to understand where we're going to, and understand that we are unstoppable if we come together. That's
Come on,
basically all.
come on, I like that. But yeah, my brother is very heavily West African in his base. Like he has a Cameroon. He comes. Your people come from Cameroon, yeah.
Yeah, Cameroon, Ethiopia.
That's what's up. Yeah. So we talk a lot about the fact that like if you want to see like really proper ancient Israelite culture, you got to go to West Africa to go see it, right?
Definitely, definitely,
Um,
definitely. From the food to the dietary laws to the way they get circumcised at a certain age, and all of these traditions just ring biblical. They're not exactly the same, but there is a strong similarity between them.
right,
You know,
100%, 100%, right. And at the same
yeah.
point in time, we talk a lot about how the fact that like Ifa in its core essence does not contradict with the Israelite concept and or the Islamic concept.
One
Um,
hundred percent, 100%. And I think this is the misunderstanding from the world of how, you know, Ifa is seen to the world. It seems to the world to be a mystic and evil sort of religion, but in fact, the gods of the so-called from a European standpoint, the people from Europe and people from the West think that Ifas they worship Orishas and the Orishas are their gods and deities. In fact, they do not understand that the Orishas are the extension and the attributes of Olodumare, and they have never ever bowed down to these Orishas and never worshipped them. They've never done this. So if you take it as, you know, Shango being a representation of one specific attribute of Allah, as Muslims would say, or you know, or another one being another representation of attribute, but still going and linked to
right.
that same deity. They have never worshipped, you know, they've never worshipped Shango or any of these deities.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, but stay tuned, fan, because we're about to get into that as well on other builds. Because that's something I definitely really want to get into is the concepts of ancient North and West Africa and how they don't conflict with Abrahamic traditions. Because there's a lot of people out here who want to preach this concept of neocolonialism like Sarah Garvey and them on this concept of we got to drop all our Abrahamic traditions because they're anti-African at their core. And nothing could be further from the truth. And this is why, like someone from a Moorish tradition that or the one that I came from, I love the fact that they uphold Garveyism. They see Garvey as a prophet in a sense because Garvey used he used the concept of whatever tradition you follow, go back home with it, right?
100,
Because
100.
and don't follow the colonialist mindset with it because with that mindset you're not going to find salvation, but with the perspective of home, you'll find salvation with because you use the tradition differently that way. You'll find that you won't be waiting on somebody to fix something, that you're actually supposed to manifest the solution yourself and whatnot, and you're responsible for working with people around you to make it happen and whatnot, right? And so
100.
a lot of what we're talking about is going to be about unifying culture, not dividing culture, and whatnot. So please stay tuned for that.
100, and I would just add, I think I think people that want this Afrocentric identity to them, which I'm 100%, they get something mixed up. They feel like Christianity in its modern form and Islam at its modern form is too either Islam on the right being too Arabized and Christianity on the left being too Westernized. I think these two concepts conflate with the sort of perception that they have of Abrahamic faith, which I completely agree. I can completely see where they may have this issue. But what I'm just saying is that this is these Abrahamic traditions is a new tradition that link back to the old tradition. And without understanding the old tradition, you won't be understand the values and the power in the new tradition, because
Agreed.
it's an evolution of faith. Faith is never stagnant, it's an evolution. It evolves from one form to the next.
And for me, it's not even an evolution. It's about the concept of Sankofa, right? Go back and take what was useful. Remember what was useful. Because we go ahead.
Yeah, like that's true, but the modern form of Christianity and the modern form of Islam does not allow you to go back to your own cultural ways because they see it as a
I'm with
hindrance
that.
rather
I'm
than
with that.
an help.
That's why I'm talking about this the whole thing we're talking about, because like so if I talk about original Christianity, I got to go back to Africa. If I talk about the original Islam, I got to go back to Africa. I talk about original Judaism, like you know what I'm saying? Like I can't
Definitely,
But
definitely.
that's why I'm saying it's time to really like just break down these barriers of bullshit and just tell people what it
Yeah,
is, man. Like real talk. Like if you're using your tradition to separate yourself from somebody, you're not really following your tradition, fam. And
yeah.
particularly for our people, fam. Like it's like we're already divided enough in the diaspora, right?
Diaspora, yeah,
So we don't need to be using our traditions to divide each other even more. If anything, we should be using them to unify respectfully amongst our traditions. Not trying to convert people, but let people be what they are, and just build upon that. But
yeah. I
but
feel,
uh,
yeah,
but if we keep going, it's going to turn into a different show.
yeah,
And
definitely, definitely.
I have to title it different. And
Yeah,
we should save some arrows in the quiver. You know what I'm saying, for some other shows. You know what I'm saying.
definitely, 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 definitely,
But again, I
definitely.
want to say a much appreciation to my brother Ulrich, aka Rise. Is there any information you want to give to the people as to where they can get at you or anything like that? Or
I really don't have any social media. Sorry, guys,
no
but
worries.
yeah, people have been telling me to make a YouTube, and I'll think about it, and
Yeah.
I'm still not very confident on the whole going live thing, but I was
Well,
kind of tense in the beginning, but then I loosened up near the end. So,
in the
inshallah,
meantime,
maybe
yeah,
next time.
real time. And in the meantime, people can catch you here talking about the Islamic Ifa Israelite concept,
Yeah, hopefully,
aka
inshallah.
the Sunni Saracen. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, nah, my Shia brothers won't be very happy. I'm joking. Yeah.
Anyway, but y'all have a good
Anyway,
one,
guys.
fam. Yeah,
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 you too, man. Bless up. Shout out to Jacob and Haru, by the way,
yeah. Big up,
for
man. Like Jacob
supporting.
and Uhuru. And who?
Definitely,
Hold on, let
definitely.
me. And brother Sergio and brother
Sergio, bro,
K
Sergio,
Bay.
yeah.
Yeah, Sergio was in there big time. I should have shot the link, fam, because you were dropping all kind of science, yeah. But anyway, I
Yeah.
hope y'all enjoy and peace and love, fam.
Peace and love, family.